Awesome. All righty. So as we talked about last time, we've been building on the momentum of leadership is personal with the focus on you are your own leader. So whether you work, don't work, you're individual contributor, you work for a family business, a team, whatever it might be, all leadership starts with you. And I really promote that. I really promote people working on themselves and their own growth and development so that you can then show up more effectively, efficiently, productively in your work. So how you interact with people and how you react and respond, that's all part of getting to know yourself and working on your own leadership. So that's where we have leadership is personal. Today, for the third webinar, we're going to talk about your voice. Your voice matters, and that's making decisions with clarity and courage. And that's, we all have things that we want to say to people and sometimes hesitant to say something because it's uncomfortable. You might not know how they're going to react. You don't want the person to feel bad. And it's important, and we're going to talk about different strategies for how you can go about helping yourself build that confidence and build the courage. So we're going to talk about that. But when I was thinking about today, and what came to mind when I was like chuckling at this, is when I was 14 and I had my first job. I was a gymnastics instructor, and I started out as an assistant, and I was making a whole whopping $3.35, which was minimum wage. I know, right, Vito? That was good. So I made really a lot of money. And after a while, I thought that it was probably time for me to get a raise. And so I talked to my parents about it, and I think they really got me to plan it out. And so I think I went in to my two bosses with a board of an explanation, a poster board with everything, all the reasons why I deserved to have a raise. And they were very willing to listen to me, and I was really nervous. And I got what I was asking for, which was a whole 30 cents more. So I went from $3.35 to $3.65, and I was really excited. So that kind of set the stage for me to get really uncomfortable and try to get things that I think I'm worthy of getting, or at the very least worthy of expressing. So they didn't necessarily have to give me a raise. Clearly I wasn't impacting them all that much. So, but fast forward all these years later, and it can be challenging to have a conversation with someone where you're asking for something, or you have a challenge, or you want to know something about them, but it might feel uncomfortable asking. So that's why I want to focus on today being your voice matters, and to really get to the space where you are more comfortable with the idea of getting uncomfortable, of the willingness to put yourself in the position of talking with other people. And so we're going to talk about a strategic framework for that. And as we move that, I'm going to go to a screen share so that you can see it's a version of oh wait, I see there's chat things here. Let me just get that chat open. Sorry. What do we have here? Okay, so there is a workbook link if you need. Oh, Mark is from Westfield, and he got to play golf with his oldest son this weekend. Oh yes, please put in information about you and what you did for yourself this summer. Donna, oh, your first job was scoring your dad's softball games, $5 a game. You got a lot of money. And a Reese's, you got $10 in a Reese's. That's great. And you were from Westfield, and you went to dinner with friends. That's great. This weekend I sat and read a book by myself, and I did yoga, so that was nice. Anyone else who wants to chime in, feel free to either quickly, you can go off mute, or you feel free to put it in the chat as well. So thanks for adding that. Let me go to screen share. Okay, so your voice matters. And so in the effort of figuring out, oh, wait a minute, sorry. Get this technical here. As I was thinking about this webinar and also reflecting on my different clients that I've worked with and some of the people that made comments in the survey last month, I've heard all different things. I'm trying to get my screen to work. Sorry, it's not really going. There we go. And things that I have heard have revolved around a theme of anxiety, about avoidance, and putting yourself after someone else. So whether it's about a new relationship, like a job with a boss or a colleague, or really second guessing what you're saying, thinking like, who am I to have this opinion and want to share it? Sometimes people think that they're going to appear bossy if they say what they want or they need, or they feel that the information is going to be misused. And maybe they'll feel like they're being dismissed by the other person. So if you've talked to someone, I know I've had this, where I talk to someone and they're really not listening. And then I want to go talk to them another time. And I remember that they're not really good listeners. But if I have something really important to say, there's that struggle of, do I want to say something or do I not want to say something? So that's just something that, these are things that I have heard from you guys who've been here before and from clients that I've talked to over the years. And these are just the general themes that have come up. So if you have any other things that you want to add, I would love to hear from you. And so Brian, you're at your job where you've been for almost 12 years and you're from Edison, not too far from Westfield. Good, thanks. Lots of local people here. Anyone from not Westfield? I'm curious. Vito, you're from North Jersey, right? Jessica's from Florida. She's from far. And I can't see everybody right now, so I kind of need you to go into the chat, or I'll find out later. The Bronx, nice. New York in the house, excellent. And Linden, awesome. Thanks for putting that in. Okay, so as you think about using your voice and realizing maybe you feel frustrated after you're talking to someone and then you're reflecting on it and recognizing that something needs to change, these are good questions you can ask yourself. And these are good questions. Montreal, nice. So how come you've chosen to not use your voice? You know, what's getting in the way of that? How is not using your voice impacting you? So maybe you feel really frustrated after you've withheld something because you were nervous, for whatever the reason you didn't say anything. And what's getting in the way of that? What would be different for you if you put yourself in the position to be heard? So this isn't necessarily today about being heard. It's about you putting yourself in the position to be heard. Because if you don't speak, you're never going to be heard. And if you do speak, you have the greater likelihood of being heard. And we're going to talk about strategies for being really effective with that. And what will it take for you to use your voice? And that is also another part that we're going to talk about, because it can be really challenging and anxiety provoking. And someone just asked, I have a problem with using my voice in some relationships, and others I am afraid, so I don't say anything. So I'm not sure exactly, but so you might have an acquaintance or someone you meet at a meeting and you're comfortable saying, I disagree with that, or asking questions that might kind of professionally challenge them. But you might be at a meeting with some people that are really important to the status of your job. And it might be a little bit more nerve-wracking, or a close family member that you have a strong emotional tie with, like a parent, a sibling, a child, maybe an aunt or uncle. The people that are closer to your family of origin, or your spouse as well, or partner, the emotional connection can create a more intense connection, which can make it more anxiety provoking or challenging to communicate a difficult conversation with them. It's usually not as hard, usually is the key word there, as people are more on the outskirts and more of a peripheral role in your life. So the closer they are to your core, typically the more emotionally challenging it is. And the strategies from today are going to be helpful for that. So thank you. So when you ask yourself these questions, then you are in the next part of this is to think about your goal. So yes, you have a goal of, I want to say X, Y, and Z. And I'm not referring to that goal. I'm thinking about your personal growth and development goal. And so I think of it as one goal in two areas. So when you're accurately and clearly communicating your point, what you're doing is you're showing up as an active participant in your relationship, whatever the status of that relationship is. If you're just sitting there and uh-huh-ing someone and agreeing with them, it's not really a two-way relationship and a dialogue, and they don't get to know you and what you think and how you experience something. Even if it's as simple as asking a question, you don't have to divulge your deepest thoughts, but having your voice heard is allowing yourself to ask someone else questions about your curiosities, or agreeing, disagreeing, just getting to know more about the situation. So being an active participant in your relationships is what I would say is part of this goal, as well as overcoming that emotional barrier. So if it's that close person in your family or someone at work or a different point in your life where you just feel that nervousness, no matter where they fall in your relationship areas, but making sure that you are challenging yourself to overcome that emotional barrier is what I'm hoping is something you accomplish with this. And so if you have any questions, please feel free, don't forget. So the strategies that we're breaking down are into three. It's clarity, responsibility, and courage. So the title of this includes clarity and courage, but I added responsibility because it's not about just being heard or putting yourself in a position to be heard. It's about making sure you do that responsibly. So we're going to go through all of that. Step one is acknowledging the choices that you've made. And so what I mean by that is not speaking up is actually a choice. Someone might not realize it's a choice. It might be more feel like it's instinctual, but you might choose to not say anything out of concern for the reaction that someone else might have, and putting yourself not as a priority, but putting someone else's needs or wants or opinions at a higher status than yourself. So that is a choice. It might be a lot of work to prioritize yourself. But again, this strategy will help you with that. So believe in the value that you offer. Don't be differential. If you have an opinion, I mean, I don't know, has anyone been in a meeting before where you're the only one that's thinking something different and you don't want to chime in because, oh, they're all going to agree with me? That would be an example of not putting yourself in a deferential role, thinking, oh, everybody else must be right, I must be wrong, but valuing your opinion. And it's actually that Vito is, I see Vito. Vito is one of the few people I can see, so I don't know who else is waiting.
Yeah, well, I had a question actually.
Sure.
Are you saying prioritizing others above yourself is not a good choice? Or is it just one of the options that you're describing?
You cut out a little bit. Just repeat that. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, the option prioritizing others above yourself.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that that is a bad option or just one of the options?
I would say it's not an ideal option. So I'm saying that a choice, like some people are choosing, but not realizing they're choosing, that they are not saying something out of concern for their reaction, or they're not saying something because they're putting someone else above them. I'm suggesting that we're going to learn how to not do that.
I would like to discuss that further because I think that there may be just a little bit of a miscommunication here about the word prioritizing.
Okay.
So if I'm prioritizing my child or my employee,
Yep.
or my manager, if I'm asking for a raise, Lauren,
Yeah.
then that is a very successful way of getting results that you're looking for. It's not putting you down, it's being other-centered. It's saying, you know, you're important and this is what I want to do for you. Because when I do that for you, then I'm going to get what I need to get out of the situation. Is that
I hear you. I'm not going to
what you're
disagree with that.
thinking?
Well, I think if you're prioritizing your child and you're focusing only on what your child needs, you might not be saying what you want and what you think. You know, if your child's having a tantrum.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. But I guess I'm thinking of it more from a, that sounds like you don't have confidence in yourself. To me, when you say, oh, I'm prioritizing others above myself, you are the most important thing.
Oh, is he frozen or am I frozen?
And you show your, I don't want to say superiority, but let's say your understanding. Oh, I'm sorry, am I frozen?
You're
Maybe I should just shut up. Go ahead.
well, Vito, just to say what
I
I'm
guess I'm
thinking.
frozen.
You're not, you're frozen. I'm frozen. Jessica's typing. Am I frozen? Oh, no. Okay, good. So I think it's important to prioritize. Vito, I'm talking about it. Well, I think you might have just gotten off. If you're not saying something that you think is of value to you, then I'm suggesting you might be putting someone ahead of yourself. And so therefore, this is a strategy to help you build up that clarity and the responsibility and the courage to say it. In some instances, it's irrelevant because you just say what you want, what you think, what you need, what your questions are. But this is more about when you're choosing to not use your voice. Those are two examples. But when you believe in your value and you stop being deferential, you're going to get to the place where you're hopefully more confident and comfortable to say something. And that also, this clarity stage also is you getting clear on what your message is. It's not how you're going to say it. We're going to get to that, but it's really what is your message. You're learning, you're figuring out your patterns of behavior, like what's getting in the way of you doing things. This is also where, as we've talked about in other webinars, like what's my role and what's my part. So, the person that you want to maybe say something to might be kind of aggressive and they'll debate you and argue with you and it's really uncomfortable. You still have the right to say something. You might be choosing, you might strategically be choosing not to say something, which is fine. But when you're thinking about, oh, I wanted to say that and I'm not, that's your role. Like, I'm uncomfortable with that person's aggressiveness in a conversation. Therefore, I don't say something. The next step of that might be, and I'm going to choose to still not say something because it's not in my best interest or it's not enough of a value to me. But when it is important enough to you, that's where I'm suggesting this work comes into play. So thumbs up if that makes sense. You got it? Okay. All right. I can't see everybody. So if anyone had thumbs down, I need to chat. Okay. I see another thumbs up. Awesome. All right. So in this effort to get clear on what's going on with you and how you're reacting, there's 3 dimensions of clarity. So you have emotions, feelings, and thoughts. So the emotions are automatic. It's like if you were driving down the road and a car is coming at you and you start shaking and slam on your brakes and maybe you are kind of screaming. It's that automatic reaction. Whereas your feelings are more explaining that, like I was scared, I was nervous, I was mad that that person was driving irresponsibly. And then your thoughts are your facts to explain that. Like, I don't want to get in a car accident. I learned when I'm maybe going to get hit, I need to get out of the way. So those are your conscious efforts to understand what's going on. They might be opinions, but they're your opinions. So they're your facts. They're what you think about it. Whereas your feelings are describing the emotion. The emotion is instinctual. The feelings and the thoughts are more conscious. It might not feel like it's conscious because it happens all fast. It's very interconnected. But when you're in this clarity stage and you break down what's going on, you will hopefully be able to separate all 3 of these and get a bit more depth into what's going on and what's contributing to not using your voice. So some examples of this are, and I'm going to go quickly because we're definitely going to run out of time. I don't want to keep everyone late. But if you're launching a new program at work and people aren't doing their part, and so your automatic emotion might be like, I'm only one working on this. There's no way it's going to be ready. Where your feelings might be that you're annoyed and stressed and frustrated. And then when you think about it, you might realize that you don't understand what others are doing all day. And you think that everyone needs to start doing their job. The doors are continually being slammed in the house. This might be a little bit of a personal part because I have kids that they don't necessarily slam doors, but it sounds like they slam doors because I don't know if you have kids. My kids don't know how to turn a doorknob and then shut a door. So everything sounds like it slams and I get really like jolty. So that my automatic reaction is doors should not be slammed. And I jump and my heart rate goes up and that people are inconsiderate. That would be like my automatic reaction. But then when I think about it, I might feel annoyed and frustrated and jittery, feel like I'm being ignored because I've had this conversation. And then my thought is that people are always slamming doors and they have to stop once and for all. And they don't care about my health, meaning like I get all jolty and things like that. So those are just two examples of how you can break down emotions, feelings, and thoughts. If anyone has their own example, feel free to put that in the chat. Love to hear about it. Oh, Donna, realizing that I sometimes hold back from saying something because it has been brought to my attention, to my surprise, and that can be intimidating. Yeah, on the spot, doing this is sometimes hard. I think the more people practice this clarity, responsibility, and courage, the more you develop a muscle. It doesn't mean that you're not going to hold back. It might be something you go back to. But as you start doing this work, and I'll say this from experience, start realizing that paying attention to your body, the physiology, pay attention to what you're thinking, pay attention to what you're feeling. And I like to go back 20/20 hindsight and go over what would I have said. But my caveat to that is you're not allowed to beat yourself up. You're allowed to use it as kind of an information, self-research tool. And the more you do that, the more likely you are to build up that muscle and then get to the point where if you're on the spot, you can start thinking about, do I want to challenge myself? Am I going to go there? It doesn't always happen, but that's one way to work on that. So thanks, Donna. And okay. The second step is responsibility. So this is the one that I added in because I think this is really only effective for you if you go about this in a responsible manner. So we know clarity is a combination of emotions, feelings, and thoughts, but now you have something to say. And how can you go about saying it responsibly? And so there's two ways to break it down. It's just an I statements, which is your verbal expression. So it's what do I want? What do I need? What will I do? What will I won't do? And there's other things you might add into that as well. Whereas the I position is doing that without saying it. It's your nonverbal behavioral shift. And so it would be just omitting the behavior that you just omitting a behavior and someone else is going to figure it out. So if you're working on this launch and everyone thinks that you're going to be the one that does all the things that they're not doing, because maybe in the past you've always picked up the pieces for other people, and your position this time might be, I'm actually not going to do that. And you can use a statement by telling people, or you can do a position by just not doing it. When as the deadline is approaching, someone else might decide or realize that you're not going to do their work and they figure it out themselves. Might be your kid forgets his or her lunch for school when kids went to school full days where they had lunch. And you might tell them that you're not going to bring the lunch. You just might not be available to bring the lunch. And they have to figure that out, how to be hungry one day. And then the next day they might be more apt. So when you take a position, the other person is in the position of starting to think about what they're doing and what they're not doing, because you're making what you will do and what you're not doing clear. Statement from someone. I tend to focus on what others think and feel, and it seems to be selfish to start focusing on myself. So this is just not something that's selfish. People often tell me they feel selfish when they're working on themselves and they are starting to talk about what they need or what they feel or what they'll do, what they're not doing. And really what I think is it's defining who you are, and it's putting yourself in a position to express that. The other person may not be used to hearing that from you. And so if you're going to no longer do something, I'm not going to do all your work for you when you don't do it yourself. They might think you're being selfish because they are used to you doing something and now you're changing it. But you also might feel that you're being selfish because how can I not help out? How can I not do something for someone else? Someone asked me to be on a committee. Someone else asked me to do something. I don't want to make them feel bad. That's a common expression I hear, but I don't think you're making anyone feel bad. I think you're putting yourself in a position to be authentic to yourself. How you go about that is the responsibility piece. But it's not selfish. I think it's really anything but. If you're going to do something that falls outside of the scope of what you believe is responsibly good for you, then you're putting someone else over you. You're kind of sacrificing your own happiness to an extent. Now, if there's a deadline and you're not willing to miss the deadline and someone else isn't doing their job, you might say, all bets are off here. I'm going to jump in and do everything. If you're in sales and there's a huge sale that's about to not happen because your colleague isn't showing up the way he or she should, jump in. Again, this isn't a blanket statement, strategic effort that you need to make. The strategy with this is deciding when and when not to implement this. You might go through this clarity, responsibility, and courage and realize that you're still going to do what you don't want to do because you think it's the responsible thing to do. So always keep that in mind. I'd like to make sure that people know that. This effort here is really a growth opportunity. When you are being deliberate and honest with your communication, you're letting someone else in and you're not taking responsibility beyond what you should. And you're setting boundaries and you're setting limits. If there's a deadline and you always let people go past the deadline, but this time around you're holding them accountable, you're setting that boundary. And you do that through the words and the verbal and the nonverbal statements. One of the things also that's great about this I position is when you're speaking for yourself, you're being your own spokesperson. You're not telling someone else, oh, you're slamming doors. Like that is not actually an I statement. That's blaming someone else for me jumping or getting nervous for a second. And chances are the other person is going to be defensive. And so the idea is to use this I statement or this I position to not blame others, but to take accountability for yourself. So here are some examples. So when it comes to this program launch, and you might say, I am doing my work for this launch and am prepared for this to fail should others continue not to do their part. Another example in addition to these is I remember talking to someone once where I shared some personal information, and then that person told me that they shared my personal information. So I wasn't thrilled, but we had a differing opinion on what was worthy of sharing and what wasn't. And so I thought about it. And when it was discussed again, I let this person know that I'm going to choose to not share my information with them because I don't want to worry that my information is going to be shared with other people. So I didn't tell that person not to do it. I can't control the other person. That other person might share anything about me and just this time not tell me. So it was when I thought about what's my role and what's my part, I came to the conclusion that it was in my best interest not to share personal information. And I said it that way. When I said, I'm going to be thinking about what I share with you because I'm not going to share something that I don't want passed along, that person's face was kind of startled. And I've since made a decision to not share a lot of stuff with that person. So that was my statement. The position, if I didn't say that, would just not to be telling the person something. And that person might not have known any differently. But it was important to me to say it because it was so uncomfortable that it was actually a growth opportunity for me to really put it out there. And so that saying it versus the position was an opportunity that I chose to put myself in. And it wasn't really fun, but it was worth it. So it's not all about fun. It's about really the growth opportunity. So that's what I mean by that. The third step, and I know I'm going fast because I want to make sure we have enough time. The third step is courage. And that is really your willingness to get uncomfortable. And by uncomfortable, I mean emotionally uncomfortable. When I wanted to say that to this person, that wasn't easy for me. Someone else, maybe it would be easy. This particular person, it wasn't. But I had that willingness to go there to do the work. It was a little bit scary. I thought about it before. I wasn't on the spot, like Donna said. But I was willing to do it. And so that's also putting your personal growth over the emotional discomfort. So if there's something that you're having this quick debate or this long thought process, if you're like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. That's going to be too difficult. That would be a great place to say, well, wait a minute. What if I did do that? What if I did go there? And to go through the clarity, responsibility, and courage steps and to see where you land. Then you can decide if you're going to do it or not. I would suggest, given the right context, to do it because there's such an opportunity for you to be heard and to put your needs and wants in a responsible way over the other. I see there's another question. What is the connection to being uncomfortable and courage? Okay, so I'm going to get there in a second. Donna said she would say vulnerability. Nice. That's a good adjective for it. I think if there is something that you need to be courageous for, it's probably something that's uncomfortable. So if you might not be fearful, but you might be fearful. But it might be uncomfortable. You might want to go climb a mountain that's really steep and you could get hurt. You might, that's uncomfortable. You might be nervous, but you also might want to accomplish that. That might be one of your goals. And so you need the courage to go do that. So, you have to get uncomfortable and be willing to have that feeling, but knowing that it's okay to be doing that and you're doing it responsibly, then the courage will come into play. It also requires risk, which is uncomfortable. Yep. I have later on, it's when you don't know what the outcome is. It's about the process of what you're doing. Alice has said, need to seek discomfort for growth. Yes, you really do. The growth is really an outcome of the effort that you put forth. It's, again, you might not achieve your goal, not the goal that I was talking about earlier, but if you want to get a promotion and you're going to talk to your boss about it, you might not get the promotion, and that's not going to be ideal for you. But the effort of having the conversation is the growth there. And that's the discomfort. That's the vulnerability. That's putting yourself in a situation that if you don't put yourself in it, your boss will never know that you want the promotion. So building, this is what I was talking about. Building courage is choosing to put yourself in situations with known intentions, but the unknown outcomes. So when you say something and you define yourself by having that I position, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know how the other person is going to respond, and they might not respond well. But if you go through this exercise and you develop this skill of going through the clarity, responsibility, and courage stages, ideally, you're going to enter that conversation knowing that that conversation is the best version of you showing up responsibly, and it's also getting out of your comfort zone. So again, you may not get the outcome that you want with the other person's response. And I would say that's okay if you're doing this work. Of course, everybody wants to get what they are seeking to accomplish. But again, if you don't use your voice, you're never going to get that anyway, unless you're lucky. And so here is at least using your voice, and it's the process that you're going through. And so also, so focusing on your purpose and your goals, but not also that emotional pull. So as you're very clear on what you want to accomplish, you still might, when you go to this courage piece, be like, oh no, this is really uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. Here's where you want to override that emotional pull. Really put yourself in the position of recognizing and reflecting on this process that you've gone through. And hopefully you'll be willing to go through with it, to follow through and execute on whatever it is that you want to be saying or doing. It may not happen right away. This is something that people need to develop and work at. And some things will be easier than others, but this is really where you get to push yourself out of your comfort zone and really have growth. It's also a good idea to anticipate how people are going to respond. Again, you don't know how they're going to respond, but when someone is surprised and curious or maybe skeptical about your showing up differently, their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions, let alone what they say, might not be exactly what's so comfortable for you. And that could motivate you to revert back to old ways, like, oh, they're really annoyed at me that I'm doing X. I better go back to the way I used to. And again, that might not even be a conscious decision. It might be something automatic that you do, which is why I think anticipating that is going to help you stay present in the clarity, responsibility, and courage strategies. Some people are going to be excited that you're expressing yourself. I mean, I don't know if people, when you're around someone and you're like, I don't know, it's fine, whatever, I don't care. Sure, I'll do that. And you're always agreeing. They might say, well, what do you really think? Like, tell me what your opinion is. What challenged me on this? And so if you're suddenly doing that, they might be startled and thrilled, but even that startledness and excitement might also feel uncomfortable. So paying attention to how you feel by another person's reactions is important. Whether you anticipate it or it just happens, because the goal is for you to continue through this strategic process. The goal is not to then react by what you believe they're saying or doing or feeling or thinking. That good so far? Any questions or thoughts? It's been quiet lately. So I just want to make sure. I don't know if Jessica.
There's one question someone just sent me.
Yeah. Oh, the anticipate slide. Oh, the anticipate slide describes me. I do something that people don't expect from me and they comment. I get so uncomfortable and I wish I didn't say anything at all. That's what I mean. That's kind of reverting back where you've done all this work to get the courage to use your voice, but then the response feels uncomfortable. But the response is ideally not where you're focusing. Ideally, where you're focusing is on the effort that you made and that you followed through with it. I'm not saying to blow off the feeling for it, recognize it, acknowledge it, but also then you get to work through that too and realize that you can come out on the other side of that. So here, the benefits, they're plentiful. So this is where your personal growth really comes into play. As you recognize that you've done this, you've had the courage to use your voice, it's very empowering. It helps you set boundaries. It helps you hopefully the next time you're in a situation like this, that you're able to right off the bat, have this conversation, this honest dialogue, the I position, the I statements, that maybe it took a lot more courage the last time. And I talk about, I'm going to mention it after, but I'm just going to say it now. So that the process of going through the exercise of clarity, responsibility, and courage is so important to make sure you do that. That's the process of it. It's not the outcome. The outcome is, do you get the promotion or don't you? Do you get the raise or not? Does a person realize that you're not willing to do all their work or not? That's the outcome. But the effort that you put forth, the thinking, the planning, the preparation, the acknowledging of the emotional challenge and the willingness to have that emotional challenge, but continue to move forward is the growth. So it's paying attention to process. It's choosing to manage the anxiety and not work around it. You know, if you work around it, you're just going to be going around wider and wider. Whereas if you work through it, you're going to realize that you're not going to combust. You're not going to crumble. You know, the anxiety is an emotion. And so when you learn to work through that emotion, you're growing. And this is an example of working through the emotion. I love the phrase, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it may always be uncomfortable. This might not, I'm not saying you're going to one day suddenly be able to say everything that you want to say. Hopefully what you'll have is the courage to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, that you'll say, you know what, I do have something that I need to do to say that I value and it's not happening. And while you want to work towards making that happen, it would be uncomfortable, but your willingness to put yourself in that position. That's where this growth comes from. And it's really, I challenge you to see what it's like. How about that? Put yourself in the position of getting uncomfortable and see if at the end of that experience, you have growth and personal satisfaction. So has anyone put themselves in this position that they can think of, and that it's an experience that maybe they want to share? I want to have the courage to tell my in-laws that I don't need another pair of slippers for Christmas this year. How about you tell your in-laws that you're probably not going to their house or their empty years this year because of COVID? That might be hard to go. That might be a hard one as well. I think that this is a good example where you could say, don't buy me this anymore. I have like 15 pairs from you. Thank you very much. Or you can say, hey, I'm really uncomfortable telling you this, and I really appreciate the gifts that you get me and the thought that you put into it. I just want to let you know that the slippers that you gave me last year still fit, and they're still good, and they're still, they haven't fallen apart. And so I don't want you to waste your money, and I don't want a gift to go unused. So I feel bad saying it, but I just really want you to know. And in that, everything that I said was about not you always buy me these slippers. Don't you realize that I have 15 pairs already? I can't even wear them out in 1 year. They last forever. You shouldn't buy me them anymore. That's the other person's probably gonna be like, great, okay, here, I'm trying to do something nice for you. Whereas the other one, they might feel badly that, oh, I didn't even think that I shouldn't get this every year. But they're hearing your side of it and your experience and your sensitivity to not wanting to hurt their feelings, but also, you don't want them to waste their money either. So it might be a difficult conversation. And you could say that this is really uncomfortable for me, but I just want to let you know. And, that would be a way to convey that message versus just getting the same gift year after year. So when you make decisions with clarity and courage, when you acknowledge to yourself that your voice matters, you're setting yourself up to decrease frustration or to feel maybe you feel taken advantage of, or that you're overly responsible for others. And when you realize that you're not overly responsible for them, but you may have a responsibility, but when you filter that through you, there's opportunities for you to use your voice. I see there's something here. I have been scared to discuss anything about the outcome of the election with my friends and family. I don't want to get in a heated debate with them like we did before the election. Hope it's okay that I mentioned politics. Okay. I'm not going to get political, but this is certainly a heightened time. And if someone is trying to get you in a conversation and it's been heated in the past, you're welcome to say, I don't know how to have this conversation with you without me getting into an argument with you, and I really don't want to argue, or I'm happy to have a discussion with you, but can we do this? Or I'm going to really try to do this without getting into an argument, but I also want to know that you're going to try that too. Otherwise, I think we're better off not having it. So again, I'm really trying to be clear on what I'm willing to do. I'm not saying, the last time you asked me about this, you got all mad at me and started debating at me and you were yelling and we got into a huge fight and we didn't talk for a week. That wouldn't be as effective. The other person is likely to be defensive. When you use the I position, the other person might feel defensive, but you're really offering them less information to be defensive about. You're offering them your information and your challenge that hopefully that they're then in a position to be like, I actually do have this question and I want to ask it and I don't want to get into a debate. I didn't even realize that I did that. I can be more conscious. So when you're making more of a statement about yourself, the other person has the latitude then to make a decision for themselves. Again, you don't know what that outcome is going to be, but you don't know. And Donna just said, especially difficult with the holiday season. And this holiday season is more difficult. I mean, there's so much going on, obviously. And so if you're aware of that, if you're aware of the intensity, people are disappointed, we're not seeing who we want to see. I mean, I know my tradition for Thanksgiving for about 15 years is not happening. So, that's upsetting. And if that upset were to overpower my mood, I might be snippy with someone. But if I'm aware of that and I can manage that, I might be able to show up clearer and be less argumentative, hopefully I won't be. Here, what is this? I was speaking to Jessica's comment. Oh, and my own above. Got it. Also, some of the outcomes here is obviously it's the courage to use your voice, and it's building confidence and self-worth. Self-worth came up last webinar. This is one way to really build up your self-worth. When you realize that you are allowed to use your voice, you can figure out how to use your voice responsibly, and you hear yourself saying it. That's great. Even better when the other person hears you, isn't ignoring you, is really responsive to you and connecting with what you're saying. You might be asking them questions about themselves. It's not that you're necessarily demanding something or saying something, but when you use your voice, it's really a great way to build up your confidence and your self-worth. It's also a great way to build up your connection with the person. And again, it's pushing through that emotional boundary and putting your personal growth in motion. I also wanted to say, and there was discussion before about if some people it's harder for you to communicate this with some people versus others. And when you do this, when you really get focused on what you're doing and how you want to go about expressing yourself and using this courage piece, and you're focused on the process, not the outcome. When you're focused on the process, you're really making a change for yourself. So you might have a challenge at work, but you going through this exercise is really helpful, because when you're in a challenge with maybe a social group that you're a part of, or a family situation, or a volunteer group, whatever it might be, the experience that you have in this effort of clarity, responsibility, and courage translates to others. If you're focusing on the outcome, and the outcome is work related, when you're in a personal situation, it might not be as transferable. But when you're really focusing on your internal growth with that, then you can transfer that over. It's you working on you. Okay, what else do we have here? If you have time, no worries. If not, I was referring to my situation with family members above. If you could speak to this. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Donna. Oh, so how to deal, Donna, you want to explain that? Can you just jump in a little?
I will try, but it is emotional. It's a very difficult anniversary date, the anniversary date of our son's passing, and it's 4 years, more than 4 years. And I don't know if my expectations are too high, but some family members that were actually there that day with us when we found out, they didn't all personally like reach out to us on that day. And I had people that I, only kind of casually know that reached out, and it was like really hurt that people that we expected to hear from, didn't make that personal contact.
And so are you saying it's heightened because of the holidays, or just is this?
Well, because it's when you're disappointed, it's kind of hard to be around people and be in touch with people and connected to people that you're feeling, disappointed about. But
Right.
I've gone through this a lot. Like, I know that is, I don't think it's intentional, it's my feeling that it's, could you be a little more thoughtful and reach out? Because but that's my expectation.
Right.
And I'm sure they don't realize how much it hurts. So,
Right.
and then to bring it up to them is very uncomfortable.
So first of all, I'm sorry. Second of all, this is the ultimate I position here. And during the holidays, all of this emotion becomes oftentimes more intense, so it's a bit more in your face. So if you wanted to have a conversation, first I was going to say, I know you said, that they care and their intentions are okay. It's challenging sometimes to have to interpret someone else's behavior to then make it okay for you, because it doesn't necessarily make it okay. That they're not intending to hurt you, but especially in this situation, people don't know how to talk about death and might be avoiding it out of their own discomfort. And yet you're really wanting to talk about it, and it's hurtful. So if you were to engage in a conversation, I would say it could be something like, this is really hard for me, and it's tough for me, and I really would like your support, and I really would like to talk about it. And I know that this might be challenging for you, but I really need you. It's hard for me. I'm sad or I'm upset. Sometimes I'm mad when I don't get that from you. Fair or not fair, I might be being unrealistic, but I'm telling you this because it's on my mind, and it's really hard, and I'm upset about it. And I'm not trying to upset you. I'm just trying to help me get your support. I hope you'll provide that for me. So that would be an example.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's really not like, where have you been? Like, you're my family. You should be here for me. Because then they're like, oh God, what's going on with her? And yet at the same time, they might understand, but they then have to interpret that. So it's exposing yourself. It's putting yourself in that vulnerable position, and it's talking about something that, I don't know that there's something harder to talk about. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So again, like, that is a good way to help alleviate the frustration of that, or the hurt, or the upset, so that's that. So this actually wraps up the part of this part. And then I just want to add that we have one more webinar, and it's 2020 reflection. So I'm not going to go back and just talk about all the things that have been so hard, but really wrap it up into themes and how you can then launch into 2021 with a better mindset, a healthier mindset, motivated and productive. Even though we're still going to be dealing with all the stuff that's going on now in 2021, hopefully things will be a bit better, but hopefully you also can be more prepared to go into the new year. But I think, it's helpful to look back on what's gone on, to think about where you want to get, and then to put yourself in the position now. So that is that. And then I think you have in the workbook too. So here's all my contact information. Definitely follow me on social media. Certainly email me with any questions or call me. I'm always happy to. I'm going to undo this screen share now. And I'm, always happy to talk through any of this with anyone if you want to. And ask questions, feel free to challenge me, and I'm up for it. And I certainly hope that everyone is willing to put themselves in an uncomfortable position for the benefit of you. But also, are there any questions, any thoughts, comments? Happy to, we have a few minutes. I know I always try to get us out under an hour. So we're almost there, but I'm happy to, if anyone has any questions, comments, or no. So I hope that everyone completes the survey. And also I always ask for ideas about what you're thinking about for the next one. So I'll have that in there. Remember to fill it out before Friday. Maybe you'll win a gift card. And I hope that everyone will be back next month for the final one. So thank you.
Thank you.